Racist boys bully little black girl. Hours later, they regretted it. That morning, the sky was clear, but Amara's heart beat as if carrying clouds. It was her first day at the new school, and she wore the uniform with the greatest care in the Kio world. A blue dress, white knee-high socks, and a pink bow that her grandmother had given her. Before leaving, she pressed the teddy bear to the bed and whispered, "Today will be good, right?" The sound of the engine echoed through the street. Deep, powerful rumble. It was her father's truck. It wasn't just any truck. It was red, clean, with the company's name written in gold ink on the door. Transportation Hope. For Amara, that truck was a castle on wheels, where she had already slept, laughed, eaten cake on Children's Day, and where she learned that the road also teaches. Her father, Daniel, was a black man with wide hands, unshaven beard, and a calm smile. Before she went downstairs, he bent down and arranged her collar with affection. "Head up, my little warrior. Show the world who you are." But the world, or at least that part of the world called Florence Wells Elementary School, wasn't ready for her. The gate was still opening when the first glances came in like invisible stones. 3 boys, blonde, impeccable uniforms and new backpacks, looked at each other with crooked smiles. One of them, the one with the backwards cap, poked the other with his elbow and let out loudly enough, "Look, did they deliver her by truck? Does it come with free shipping?" The laughter echoed louder than the noise of the engine shutting down. Amara listened. She heard everything. But he kept walking. Her little feet touched the ground as if trying not to make noise, as if the silence hid her. On the sidewalk, a group of girls whispered. One of them, with her blonde hair tied in braids, asked with barely disguised innocence, "Who is that? Why did she come in a truck?" Amara held the strap of her backpack firmly. The father opened the door of the truck, got out and waved with a smile. But no one reciprocated. Neither do adults. Neither did the teacher at the gate, who just made a hurried wave without even looking him in the eye, as if she were too busy to see humanity. The truck seemed too huge there, out of place, like her. Amara swallowed but didn't shed a tear. She knew her father was a giant, even though no one there saw it. When he got into the truck to leave, she took a step towards the school building. And with each step, she felt like she was dragging the weight of all the looks, all the whispers, all the muffled laughter. It wasn't the truck that was out of place, it was the world. A world that did not yet know how to treat dignity with respect. But something burned inside her, something she didn't know how to name, but that one day she would understand, because no one who carries love in the passenger seat needs to be ashamed of where they came from. That's it. It was just the beginning. The clock on the wall was 1:15 when the bell rang. It was lunchtime, but for Amara it seemed like the hardest time of the day. The hallways were filled with hurried steps, laughter, loud voices, and shoving disguised as playfulness. She walked slowly to the cafeteria, lunchbox in hand. A light pink lunchbox with blue hearts, a gift from her father before they started the new year. In the queue, the canteen employee didn't even look up when she passed her card. Amara took a tray, carefully positioned her boxed juice, a sandwich with well-cut loaf of bread, a red apple, and headed towards the tables. But none of the tables seemed inviting. Closed groups, chairs occupied with backpacks, conversations that stopped as soon as she approached. Finally, he found an empty seat in the corner of the cafeteria. He sat down slowly, trying not to attract attention, but the silence around her was noisy, and it would soon be broken. "Look who's here." A mocking voice came from behind. It was the same boy in the cap as on the first day. He was with 2 friends. One of them held a carton of milk with a straw. The other was chewing a cookie, with his mouth open. "I bet she brought trucker food," one of them said, laughing loudly. "Be careful, huh?" said the other. "They say that those who eat poor people's food get road lice." The laughter of the 3 seemed to echo on the walls of the cafeteria. Amara remained seated. He didn't say a word. He just looked at his apple. He picked it up gently, as if it were the most valuable thing in the world. And to her, it was. Because she knew Thiefert her father made to put each item there. She knew that this simple sandwich tasted of affection, not shame. Some children looked at it but turned their faces away. An assistant teacher was nearby but pretended not to hear. Perhaps he thought that it was just a joke. Maybe I was already used to letting this kind of thing go. A girl, blonde with a glitter tiara and a Barbie backpack, passed by. His eyes crossed with Amara's. For a second he hesitated. It looked like I was going to sit down, but he changed his mind. He went to the next table. She sat down laughing with two other colleagues. Amara's silence was too uncomfortable to share. And the weather? Time seemed to run slowly, like molasses on a crooked plate. Each bite was heavy, each sip choking, every laugh around, a scream she couldn't answer. But she stayed there. It's all over. Alone. With dignity. Because there was something that others didn't yet understand. She was learning to hold the world in her stomach before she was even tall enough to reach the highest shelf. And that day, between the bread and the apple, she began to understand that existing for someone like her was an act of resistance. What she didn't know yet was that what would come next, it would change everything. On Tuesday, Amara arrived early. Her father left her at the gate with a kiss on the forehead and, "You are the light, never forget." The truck drove off slowly, as if reluctant to leave her there alone once again. Amara walked into the living room with light steps, backpack tight on her shoulders, hair tied in two braids made with care by her aunt, and a glint of hope still intact in her eyes. But that morning, the glow would begin to fade. When he entered the room, the students were still arriving. The desks were disorganized, backpacks were thrown on the floor, and the board still had the lesson from the previous day. Amara went straight to her wallet, the third in the second row. As soon as she opened her backpack to take out her math notebook, her world stopped. The cover, which the day before was brand new and blue, was now torn in the middle, as if it had been cut with a razor. The sheets were folded, dirty, some missing. But the worst, it wasn't that. Stuck between two pages was a note. A piece of paper torn from some notebook with crooked letters and scribbled in red pen, "Go back to the truck, monkey." There was no signature. I didn't even need to. The smell of contempt was always the same, and in that room, the looks that averted were the same as those that knew. Amara didn't cry. He didn't run to tell it. She just stood there for a few seconds, holding the note with her steady hand. Then he put it back between the crumpled pages. He put the notebook back in his backpack. He took a deep breath. Across the room, one of the boys, the same one who had mocked him in the cafeteria, pretended to yawn, but the song of his smile gave him away. Another recorded with his cell phone hidden under the table, perhaps waiting for a reaction, an explosion. But there wasn't, because Amara learned early on that for girls like her, even crying could be used against her. The teacher entered shortly after. He noticed that Amara was strange, asked if everything was okay. Amara nodded. He said he just had a headache. She lied, not out of fear, but because he had already realized that their pain was not an important matter. There was no point. For that, the rest of the morning went on like a blur, but inside her backpack, a wounded notebook carried not only incomplete equations, but a difficult truth. At that school, her color and origin were targeted before she even opened her mouth, and even so, she continued. Because even torn books can contain powerful stories, and hers was just getting started. Thursday arrived with sun and clear skies, but inside the school, the air seemed dense, heavy, as if something was about to happen. Amara entered the gates with her backpack a little lighter as she decided to leave, the torn notebook at home. The wound was still open but hidden. She walked down the central corridor, heading towards the classroom with restrained steps and downcast eyes. Still, his presence bothered him. It wasn't loud, it wasn't provocative, it was just different. And that, for some, was enough to stoke the worst. That's when they came after her. 3 boys, the same. The sound of backpacks dragging on their shoulders, the hurried steps, the muffled laughter. One of them began to imitate the roar of a truck. "Be careful, free lane for the trucker's daughter," he said, pretending to turn a steering wheel. The other pulled the hood of her sweatshirt, causing her to stumble forward. The third was further away. He didn't touch her. I had my cell phone in my hand, filming, with the perfect framing as if it were a comedy program. Amara staggered but did not fall. She turned slowly, facing the three of them. His eyes had no anger. They had something denser, disappointment, the kind of look that says, "I already knew you would do this." And perhaps that is why it was even more difficult to bear. Some students saw it. 2 teachers passed in the background, distracted. A group of 5th grade girls laughed softly. No one intervened. And then, the video was sent to a group in the class. Title: "The Trucker's Daughter Taking It Closed in the Hallway." The caption came with laughing emojis. "The shares have begun." Some watched and just shook their heads. Others thought it was funny. A 7th grade student, the daughter of a school cleaner, saw the video and didn't laugh. She saved him. He kept it as if it were a test. Later, Amara's father saw his daughter too quiet, sitting at the dinner table, stirring the rice with her fork. "Did everything go well at school, dear?" She shook her head, saying yes, but she didn't look him in the eye. He was silent for a few seconds. Then he got up, went to the shelf, picked up an old folded piece of paper, the first drawing Amara had made for him as a child, a red truck and a girl smiling in the passenger seat. He looked at the drawing, then looked at his daughter. And even without knowing the video, he understood. And at that moment, he made a decision. He wouldn't talk. He would show it. Because sometimes the best answer to contempt, it is the dignity that refuses to fit into anyone's mold. And what happened the next day stopped the entire school. On Friday morning, the students arrived at school as usual. Some laughed loudly at the gates, others ran with backpacks hanging from one side. It was an ordinary day until something different happened. A deep sound began to echo through the narrow streets of the neighborhood, the noise of a heavy engine shifting smoothly. It was not a luxury car, it wasn't the director's black SUV. It was a truck. That truck, the same red truck that many had mocked, the same that for Amara was safer than any castle. He slowly entered the parking lot, passing the curious looks that accumulated. But this time, there was no shame. Amara's father climbed down the driver's door in a clean uniform, blue shirt folded over the sleeves, the carrier's logo embroidered on his chest, and a thick white envelope in his hands. He adjusted his cap and walked with firm steps to the boardroom. School stopped, literally. Windows opened, children touched the windows, teachers went out to the hallway. The students wondered what he was doing there. Some expected confusion. But there were no screams. There was no confrontation. Minutes later, he reappeared in the courtyard, now with authorization from the management, and he opened the rear compartment of the truck. Inside, there were no ordinary cashiers. There were brand new school kits, backpacks, notebooks, pencil cases, paradidactic books, all separated with tags and bows. "These are donations," he said, to the coordinator, who watched in amazement. "From a partner NGO that serves the children of truck drivers in rural communities, part of my route." A journalist who was following the project appeared there, silently summoned by him the day before. He began to record everything. The truck has become a walking symbol of dignity and social action. Amara watched from afar. She didn't know anything. She stood still at the entrance to the yard, watching her father smile with the other drivers who came to help. Yes, other truck drivers appeared, most of them black, some brown, some Latino. They came with their own vehicles, forming a small motorcade outside the school. "This is for all the children who have already arrived at school and were treated as less just because they didn't come in an expensive car," said one of them, shaking hands with Amara's father. The director, visibly disconcerted, tried to lead the scene inwards, but it was too late. The cell phones were recording, the nets were about to explode. And Amara, for the first time since he set foot in that school, he smiled without fear. From that day on, the truck stopped at the gate, and no one laughed anymore. Because now they knew. This man carried no ordinary cargo. He carried history. He carried purpose. And, above all, he carried the girl who would teach everyone there what it is to be proud of where you come from. If you want, I can continue with the next topic, the silent revelation and the new look, maintaining this same level of depth and emotion. Do you want me to follow? Perfect. Here is the detailed and emotional narration of the sixth topic, the silent revelation and the new look, maintaining the same narrative and climactic aesthetic. The following Monday, the atmosphere at school was no longer the same. It was still early, but the runners were restless, as if waiting for something to happen. There were no more jokes about trucks echoing in the yard. There was no more sneaky shoving or muffled laughter as Amara walked by. Had silence and downcast eyes. The video of her father opening the truck compartment circulated in parents' groups, on students' networks, and even on local community pages. It was impossible to ignore. A simple black man with measured words and firm gestures turning mockery into generosity. That had weight, and it had beauty. But what no one knew yet was who he really was. On the morning of that day, the principal called a meeting with some teachers and representatives of the community. The reason? A letter. A sealed envelope with the coat of arms of an NGO called Rodas do Saber, one of the largest itinerant education initiatives in the country, recognized for bringing mobile libraries and support to rural and Quilombola schools. And the sender of the letter? Daniel Oliveira. Yes, the truck driver. The father of the truck girl. He wasn't just a driver, he was one of the founders of the NGO, creator of the education program for the children of truck drivers, a former student of the public school system, who made a point of giving back everything he learned, road by road, book by book. The letter, read aloud in the teacher's room, ended with a sentence that would remain on the school wall for months afterward. If the road has taught me anything, it is that the longest path is always the one that passes through respect. That same day, the school decided to put a poster at the entrance with the NGO's seal and start a campaign to collect school supplies. But this was not the principal's initiative. It was due to pressure from the school community, which now saw in Amara's family not a shame, but a mirror that revealed the flaw of his own judgments. And Amara. He entered the room with his backpack on his shoulders and a new notebook under his arm. No one dared to make a joke. The girl who was once a laughing stock was now looked at with different eyes, not out of fear, but for something rarer in environments where prejudice reigns: admiration, because she didn't raise her voice. He did not retaliate with shouts. He did not respond with hatred. She waited, and he let the world discover the weight of his origin, not in the scream, but in the silent presence that carries history. And this new look at her. I was just beginning to transform what that school thought it knew about value. On that Tuesday afternoon, while the students were leaving the school between whispers and curious looks, something unusual happened. An 8th grader, a quiet, tech-loving kid who never got involved in anything, posted a video on Instagram. He was not like the others. It was a simple recording, with no filters, no cuts, no background music. Showed Amara climbing into her father's red truck with a small jump of pride on her feet, as if that step was the first of something much bigger. Her father was waiting for her with the door open, and when she entered, he spun her in the air, in a spontaneous gesture, full of love. Then together they waved to whoever was watching. Only this time many were looking. The legend, short, direct, powerful, the daughter of the truck driver who silenced an entire school with dignity. In less than 3 hours, the video had already surpassed 70,000 views. In 12 hours, it exceeded 500,000. The next day, she appeared on activism pages, child empowerment accounts, and even celebrity profiles that they shared with phrases like, "Pride doesn't need pedigree, it needs courage." This is how you educate with love and respond with class. The school became news, but not as he expected. The board, which had previously tried to stifle everything, was now pressured by journalists, parents, and councils. The hashtag Cha Amara da Estrada began to trend on the networks. Prints of his father's letter circulated. Old videos of bullying were re-uploaded and compared to the new reality. A once invisible little girl who now symbolized respect, strength, and a fresh start. The most impressive thing was that at no time did Amara smile for the camera. He didn't pose, he didn't ask for likes, he didn't make a speech. She just got into the truck lightly and let the world understand what it meant to walk with her head held high. It wasn't fame. It was memory, and memories, when they are born of pain and blossom in courage, are not easily erased. She didn't have to defend herself. The whole world was already doing it for her. Time passed, the videos went viral, the comments boiled over. The teachers were more careful, and even the principal, the one who avoided confrontation, started to look Amara in the eyes. But the biggest change didn't happen on social media or in the headlines. It happened in an empty room, in a forgotten corner of the school, where Amara decided that her road still had no end. She asked the coordinator for permission to use the old art room on Wednesdays. He didn't say much, only that he wanted to create a conversation group. In the beginning, 2 girls came, then 4, the following week 7. The name was born on a sheet of paper, Clube da Rodovia, a place for children of ordinary people, hardworking, invisible, and essential. A place where no one needed to pretend that they were more than they were, because there, being real, was enough. The dynamic was simple. Each one told a story, where they came from, what their parents did, what they were ashamed of, and what they began to be proud of. Amara was almost always silent. I only listened, but when he spoke, his words came, low, and they hit like a straight road on a clear day. One of the girls, the daughter of a seamstress, said that she used to lie that her father was a businessman. Now she has sewn a small case with patchwork fabric for each colleague. One boy, who avoided talking because his father sold fruit at the market, started to bring homemade natural juice to the group, and all the notes, insults, and nicknames thrown at them, they were pasted on a mural that Amara called Starting Point, because from then on they would be whoever they wanted. Amara's father watched everything from afar. He kept leaving her at the door with his red truck, now with a new sticker on the bumper. My fuel is my daughter's pride. He no longer climbed the stairs of invisible shame. Now he was greeted with respect, looked at with curiosity, listened to attentively. Because the world may not change as fast as videos go viral, but it changes when a brave child decides not to let shame speak louder than love. And Amara was now a reference. But I never wanted a stage, only space. Space to teach, without shouting. To show that what was once a laughing stock, now, it was movement. Because her road doesn't end at the school door. She continues, running and taking other girls and boys along. How many children do you know who hide who they are, just to fit into the silence of others? Amara's story is not just about a black girl who is the daughter of a truck driver. It's about all the times the world has tried to shrink someone just because they weren't born on the right leather seat. It's about when the clean uniform is not enough to erase the prejudice that dirties the eyes of those who have never had to fight to be seen. It's about the power to turn shame into a flag, silence into a road, and pain into a legacy. Amara didn't break the system with a shout. She cracked the ground beneath his feet with presence. If this story made you swallow hard, you have 2 options. He pretends that nothing happened, closes this tab, and continues to feed a system where truck drivers are jokes and dignity is luxury. Or share it now, because someone out there, someone invisible, someone who cringes every time they see a school gate, needs to know that belonging has no trademark. Share. Comment. Mark who needs to learn or remember that respect is not optional. Because as long as there are people being ridiculed for their origin, we will continue to make stories like this viral.